Last year, I started law school in Los Angeles. I have never lived in a big city before, and I was really excited to be in a massive city with over 4 million people. Ever since I was little, I always knew I had a half-sister in LA, but my parents had this weird anger toward her that always made it feel like a taboo topic. Of course, I had looked her up on social media and I knew what she looked like, but that was about it. We had never actually met. She was never that active on social media, so there wasn't a lot I could see. Out of nowhere, one day in my first year of law school, I got a friend request on Facebook from my sister. Her profile seemed legitimate. She had Facebook friends, and her profile picture looked like her. She sent me a message inviting me to a little dinner party at the park with her friends. We could finally meet each other for the first time. I was new to LA, still am, and I had no idea which parts of the city to avoid at night. I was so excited about the idea, but I had a lot of anxiety about it too. It would be nice if we met, totally clicked, and became besties for life. But what if we ended up sobbing like we were in some dramatic movie scene? What if I tried to talk to her and she just didn't click with me, and she started showing me an attitude? Or worse, what if it's all going well until we have some kind of disagreement? Someone said something hurtful, and then we both start crying in front of everyone. Honestly, if she had suggested a cozy little bakery for desserts instead, I would have gone. But going to a park with other people didn't feel right. I thought it was such a precious moment that I didn't want to have in front of all those other people. I couldn't bring myself to go. I didn't want to risk having a meltdown in front of other people. I was worried about how messy it would get. A few weeks later, I googled that park just to see what it was like. Maybe we could meet up there together, just one-on-one. That's when I learned something was wrong. I won't say the name of the park, but anyone who has lived in LA for long will tell you that it's not a safe place for girls to be having a dinner party at night. The area surrounding that park has very high violent crime rates. It's controlled by gangs. Even people who do illegal business in that park are forced to pay a tax to the gang in exchange for being left alone. So now I was really concerned and curious. I actually tried to get a hold of my sister myself. She was an undergrad at the time, a local college. I had a friend who went to her school. I asked my friend to reach out to her on campus and ask her if she'd be okay with meeting us. They connected, and the three of us met at my friend's house. It was great, and we all got along so well. My friend was also very happy to do that for us. The three of us had so much fun. We weren't bursting in tears, but we let out a few. We had dinner, we watched a movie, and we spent the rest of the night at my friend's house. When I told my sister about the whole thing, she said she hadn't used Facebook since high school, so clearly someone was impersonating her. I would have told her to report the fake account, but it had already been deleted. She knew that she had been impersonated on social media, though. Another one of her friends had been scammed by someone pretending to be her as well. It was some scheme involving fake concert tickets or something like that. Someone had been impersonating my sister. They knew I was in town, and they literally tried to lure me into one of the most dangerous parts of LA at night. I have no idea what their motives were. I don't know if I even want to find out. Meeting my sister after all these years, though, was a beautiful thing, but the whole backdrop was terrifying. This happened in 1996, in my hometown of about 100,000 people. I was 15 years old from the suburbs and went to a high school in the city. I finished with class, and for some reason I decided to walk to the main bus station instead of just waiting at the nearest bus stop. I stood at the gate that my bus line, number 15, starts from. Another bus line, number 17, also starts from the same gate. After waiting for about 10 minutes, a man asks me if bus number 17 is taken off yet. I say yes, I'm sorry, you just missed it. The man, who looked to be at least 30, maybe 40, then introduces himself to me as Mark. He stretches out his hand for me to shake it. I didn't want to be impolite, so I do. I introduce myself as Maya. My name is not Maya. It was bizarre to me that a grown man was introducing himself to me at a bus station. I may have been 15, but I knew better. He asked me if I just finished school. I say yes. Then he asks me what school I go to. I lie. Then asks if I'm going home. I say no, even though I am. Then asks me where I'm going, and I say to a friend's house. My bus pulls up and I get on it. Strangely, this man, Mark, gets on as well. I know for a fact he'd asked me if number 17 had taken off yet. If he was originally planning on going on number 17, there is absolutely no reason to get on my bus, number 15. They don't have a single stop in common. I sit down and he sits himself next to me. He asks me which year of high school I'm in. I lie for some reason and say I'm a junior. I was actually a freshman at the time. He says I look too young to be a junior. I say I hear that all the time. Then he asks me if I have a boyfriend, and I say no, and he says that I should. I then ask him where he is going, and he says he's going home. I ask if he isn't planning on taking number 17. He says no, and tells me he lives at the very end of bus line 15. That was odd. I've never seen him on the bus before. He asked me if I'm on my way home as well, and I say no, that I'm visiting a friend. Looking back, he knew I was lying. I was sure he believed me, and I really thought I had the situation under control. I should have walked to the bus driver and told him what was going on. I didn't because I was just scared, and I didn't want to make a scene out of nothing. There were plenty of people around, and while he was strange, I really thought that he was just a harmless, lonely weirdo. We get to my stop. I purposely miss it, and I get off at the next one, thinking I'll fool him and then just walk home a bit longer. To my surprise, he gets off as well, and I ask him where he's going, and he says he wants to walk me home. Again, I tell him that I'm not going home. I'm visiting a friend. He says that's fine, he'll walk me. I say he really doesn't need to, and in a stern and irritated tone, he tells me to shut up and walk. There is no one on the street now. We are the only ones who got off the bus here. I'm alone with this weird man who followed me from the bus station. I can't go home because I don't want him to know where I live. I start panicking, and I don't know what to do, so I just freeze and stand there, silent. In an instant, he went from weird but chatty and smiley to telling me to shut up. And I went from feeling in control to knowing I really fucked up. He put his hand on my shoulder and tells me that he doesn't have much time, so we should get going. I want to tell him that he clearly does, but I don't want to anger him more, so I just nod. He tells me that if I'm good, I don't have to be scared of him. I lie and say I'm not scared. He asks me if that means I plan on being good. I say yes. He forced me to repeat it in a whole sentence. Yes, I will be good. I begin walking. I don't know where I was going, I just walked. He walked with me, with his hand on my shoulder still. I was never religious growing up, but I remember praying that I don't pass out. My heart was beating so fast, and breathing was difficult. I was sure I was about to collapse and die. Then I spotted an older man tending to his garden in front of a house. That's the last thing I remember. I have a vague memory of running. I was later told that I was screaming for help while running towards the older man, while Mark ran off. The older man called the police, and they contacted my parents. The police couldn't do anything but take my statement. Since my parents both worked and couldn't take me to and from school, they bought me a new phone the very same day. This was in the 90s when mobile phones were a luxury. I wish the story ended here. After the event, I only ever got on the bus at the stop right in front of my school. A few weeks passed, and I did so like I did any other day. We locked eyes as soon as I stepped on. He was on the bus with the biggest grin on his face, like he couldn't be more excited to see me. I was so creeped out, I immediately got off and ran into the school. I called my mom in tears, and she had me find a teacher to walk me to her car when she came to get me. The school was then notified on the situation. After that, he was spotted walking around the school several times, sometimes a few days in a row, but sometimes he wasn't seen for weeks. The police were of no help. They couldn't do anything until he actually hurt me, or showed up on school property or at my home. I spent the rest of the year waiting in the school until late afternoon so my mom could pick me up after work. We always took a very long route home. I now know that she was making sure we weren't being followed. My parents then had me switch schools. Thankfully, he was never spotted in my neighborhood, and I'm very sure he never found out my name or got my address. I only ever saw him one more time. I was 21, in my hometown, on summer break from university. I saw him in a grocery store in a whole different part of town. He didn't seem to recognize me, didn't even really look at me, but I immediately recognized him. Where I live, there is no convicted criminal list like in the US. Such cases are not reported, and I never found out the man's full name. I have no idea who he is or what he has done in the past. I don't know what he would have done to me. My belief is that he might have been mentally challenged, saw me, liked me, and followed me. My mother believes that it was much more complex, that he was planning something, that he knew exactly where we were going. My dad still doesn't talk about it. I'm just happy he's out of my life. This is a story that my dad shared with me. He grew up in a small suburban community of Stow, Ohio, with his parents and older sister. Across the street lived a boy named Richard Wade Cooey. He was the same age as my dad and described him as a scrawny, red-headed troublemaker. He would spit on people as they walked by and even set a house on fire in the neighborhood, and blamed it on a kid who had special needs. Nothing he did as a child, however, could compare to the crime he committed when he was only 19. My dad had just started his sophomore year of college when he heard the news. Richard and his friends Clinton and Kenneth were throwing pieces of concrete off a local bridge onto the interstate when one of them struck the vehicle of a 21-year-old Wendy Ofrendo. Her friend, 20-year-old Dawn McCreary, was also in the car. They were sorority sisters who had just gotten off work at a local restaurant. At this point, Kenneth decided he had enough and went home. This is when Richard and Clinton came up with their evil scheme. Both of the young men approached the girls, offering them help and offering to give them a ride. They drove the girls to a shopping center, where they then told them to call their parents and let them know that they were all right. The two then forced the girls back into the car, tied their hands together, and drove them to a field behind the local mall where they assaulted, stabbed, and tortured them for 3 grueling hours. They abandoned their bodies in the field, but only after they carved large X's on their stomachs. Richard and Clinton then decided they wanted to sell the girls' clothing and jewelry to make some extra cash. When Richard couldn't find a buyer for the items, he burned them in his backyard, which woke my grandparents. My grandfather called the police to report that what he thought was yet another neighborhood disturbance from Richard. The police gathered the items for evidence, and after finding Wendy's abandoned car, they arrested Richard and began the investigation. Clinton and Richard were both arrested and charged with the murders. They had found a bloody pocket knife used to stab Wendy in the neck in Clinton's pocket when he was arrested, and some of the burned items still had traces of the girl's blood. Since Clinton was only 17, he was spared the death sentence and currently is serving life in prison. Richard, however, was given the death penalty. On October 14, 2003 at 10 a.m., he was executed by lethal injection. Wendy's family was present at his execution. Every time I visit my grandparents and look across the street at that house, I can't help but get the chills. I'm glad I never met Richard, and I'm certainly glad my dad was smart enough to not become your friend growing up.